Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and to another video. In this one we're going to be making this amazing elf welcome back balloon. It is a bobo balloon. It is on a hat box. It has got this special delivery from the North Pole which we're going to use the Cricut to make, and we're going to jump straight into the video and get started. First things first then, let's quickly run through what we're going to need for this project. So of course you're going to need your naughty elf. He's here ready. I've got some fishing line. This is just £8 fishing line. It's quite thin and I'm just going to use that to suspend him in the balloon. I've got two different ribbons. I've got a thicker one and a thinner one. I've got a 10cm acrylic disc that I'm going to use. I have my bobo balloon. This is just the regular long necked one, not the one that's got the big opening on it. Then I have my hat box, which I think is about a 20cm hat box, so I'm going to use that for the balloon to sit onto. I have my artificial snow, and then I've got two of these foil balloons which I may or may not use. Not sure yet what I'm going to do with these, but I've got them on hand just in case. You're going to need an inflator. I would recommend using an electric inflator for this project, and you are also going to need something to seal your balloons with. So on this occasion, to make this project so that most people are going to be able to do it at home, I'm using a set of hair straighteners. Now the reason that I like these ones in particular are because they have an adjustable temperature setting on them, so I can make it so they're not quite as hot or they're super duper hot. And I'm just thinking most people have probably got a set of these at home rather than relying on having a balloon heat sealer, because I don't expect that most people have got one of those just chilling in their kitchen. So I'm going to use those today. If you've only got a hand pump, you'll be able to use a hand pump. It just will take a little bit longer. So without any further ado, let's get started on popping this naughty elf into this balloon. First thing we need to do then is get him ready so that he's going to be in the balloon. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Tie it around his hat and he will hang like this way around, or I think what I'm going to do is have him hanging upside down by his leg, because that'll be really naughty. So let's grab a bit of this. It's quite thin stuff. You're not going to be able to see it on camera at all. What I tend to do is get myself a piece that is quite long, just so that I've got room to manoeuvre myself with it. All I'm going to do is just create a cinch knot. So to create a cinch knot, you're probably not going to be able to see this, but you fold your piece of line so that you've got a loop at this end. I'm going to pop that around his leg, and then these two free ends are just going to go through that loop, and I'm going to pull them out the other side, and then I'll just pull those tight. And then what I can do is take one side of that line to each side and just tie a regular double knot on that. So he's going to be hanging by his leg upside down in our balloon, and that is how he is going to be. You can see that line just there. So we're going to pop him to one side for a minute while we get the balloon sorted now. First thing that you're going to want to do when you've got your bobo is just give it a really good stretch. So these are basically a plastic balloon, so what you want to do is give it a good stretch. Don't worry about popping it or anything like that. You want to give it a really good stretch all the way around on each side, and this just helps the balloon to expand when we inflate it to its full size. Just want to make sure it's really well stretched. So it will look a little bit wonky by the time you've finished, but that is what you want it to be like. And I'm just going to stretch these edges and just pay special attention to those. There we go, that is ready to be inflated. As I said, you can use a hand pump if you want to, but I'm going to use my trusty air inflator. I'll pop a link to this down below. I've had this for years now and it works so well. Let's just pop this plug in here. There you go. And what you're going to want to do is just grab your bobo, open up the neck and just inflate it nice and big. Now, you might be able to see there's a flat spot on this balloon, so what you have to do now is give it a roll just to get it as round as you can. I'm just holding the neck on it closed. I'm just going to give it a roll around on my desk just to try and get that as round as we can, and that looks much better. It's a little bit squishy in the middle. As you can see, these are quite robust balloons, as I said, so that looks much better. I'm just going to let the air out of that now. Give it a good press down, and then I'm just going to re-inflate it one more time. That looks lovely. Okay, let's now let that out. Now we're ready to get our balloon cut and then put the elf in and get it resealed. You're going to need a really sharp pair of scissors for this part, so I've got some here. These are just a pair that I usually use just for fabric, but they're great for the balloon. What I tend to do is come to the bottom sort of quarter of my balloon around here. I don't want to be too close to the neck, because the neck is generally a really high stress point on any balloon, because you are going to be tying that in there quite tightly, and that is going to create a stress around that neck of the balloon. So I'm going to just very carefully cut a slice off of this balloon. You don't want to go mad, you just want to make sure that you've got enough room that your elf is going to fit through that hole, and they are quite well stuck together, these two bits of balloon. So let's have a look. How big is that? Do we think we'll get in through that hole? Let's make it a teeny weeny bit bigger. There we go. That should work now. There we go. So here is our little elf dude. Now I'm just going to see if I've got a small needle. Yes, I do have a plastic one actually, which is very handy with balloons to use a plastic needle. So here is my plastic needle. So what I'm going to do is just get my line and put it through there. And first of all, I'm going to put my hand into the balloon, and I'm just going to pass that needle through the balloon and up and out of the neck, just so that his line is well and truly through there. And it's easier to do it on a needle than it is to do it just trying to poke that piece of line through, because you will struggle really, I think, to hold on to that. Okay, so that is in there. Next we need to get this dude in there. So let's go feet first. Shove him in there. Might be easy, you know, to put a little puff of air into this balloon just to free it up a little bit. There he is. He is in there. Perfection. You don't need to worry too much about what way round he's sitting at this stage. It's just purely because we want him to be in there. I think what I'm going to do with regards to the snow as well is put the snow in afterwards, just through the neck, rather than trying to get it in there now, because if the worst does happen and my balloon pops when I'm reinflating it, I'm going to have that stuff everywhere, and don't really want that in my craft room at the moment. So he's in that balloon, he's well and truly in there. I'm going to heat up my straighteners now, so let's grab those. Here they are. Let's unlock them, because they won't work unless they're unlocked. And I'm just going to plug them in. Good job I've got a lot of plugs, isn't it? Right, they are there now. They are unlocked. Let's turn them on. And let's put them down to 150 degrees. I think I'm going to start with and see how that goes. I'm just going to let those heat up. They'll tell me when they are done. Right then, straighteners are at 150 degrees. So what you want to do now, locate the two ends of your hole in your balloon, and all you want to do is very carefully pop that onto the edge of your straightener. Try not to burn yourself, and just press that down. You want to be careful because you don't want to overly melt your balloon. You actually don't even always need to press it. Sometimes it will just do it with it just being laid on there, but you just want to be careful. Okay. And what I tend to do is just go a little bit over that edge here just to make sure that that is sealed there. I'm just going to redo that side slightly. And then I'm just going to go here again as well. You want to make sure that these are cooled before you start inflating as well. Just take your time with this part, you don't need to rush. Okay, so this is the finished seal. It looks a little bit messy, but that is just because obviously we have distorted the shape of the balloon around the edge, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be covered up with ribbon. So I'm just going to make sure that my seal is holding, and I've just got a hand pump to do that with. So I am going to get this in here and just inflate until it would be full-ish, just to check whether that seal is going to hold. So that is holding perfectly, as you can see. I can give it a good squeeze and it's holding nicely. It's not going to pop. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to put my snow in now. So let's grab my snow, and I'm just going to use a piece of cardboard to do this with and make a little funnel. So let's grab a card piece out of my scraps box. So I'm literally just going to make a really crude looking little funnel. Let's grab some tape and just tape that in. I want it to have a little hole in the top of it. So just making a little funnel, and I'm going to pop that in the neck of my balloon. In fact, I need to turn these straighteners off so I don't end up melting anything with them. Let's just put those to one side to cool down. I don't want to melt anything with them. Right, let's get our funnel in our balloon. The bobos stick together really well, so it's difficult once you've got that vacuum seal on there to get back into it. Right, so that is on there. How much snow do you think one elf needs? I don't even know. Let's see if we can get it in there first. What can we poke it through with? Oh, this is a little bookmark that I've got here. So I'm just going to put some snow in. Okay, he's got some snow in there, and I'm not sure exactly how much snow one elf needs, so I've just sort of winged it a little bit to sort of see how much he does need, but we'll see afterwards whether he needs any more or not. We will see once it's inflated. So let's get this open and let's inflate our balloon now. You can do it by hand if you want to. If you're a bit worried about it popping or anything like that, I would probably recommend doing it by hand. It's less of a shock when it happens and you are inflating on a hand pump than it is when you're doing it like this. So I'm going to do mine like this. There we go, that is done. Here he is then, he's in the balloon. What you'll want to do now is get your line. He does need more snow, I think, to be honest. That is a paltry amount of snow, isn't it, for an elf? I'm going to put more snow in. That is no good at all. But anyway, he's in there and he's looking good. He looks really uncomfortable. But I love him so much. Right, I am going to put more snow in, so bear with while I do that, because I think he definitely needs more snow. I'm going to try and do it like this actually and see what happens. This could be absolutely hilarious right now. I really wish I had a proper funnel. I don't ever use a funnel in my kitchen, so I'm going to try and keep that neck open because it will make life so much easier putting this in. I think I'm going to invest in a real funnel for the future when I'm doing things like this, because this is ridiculous. It works, but you know, I'm going to have to vacuum again though, I think, aren't I? Gotta be a better way of doing this. Right, he's got half a bag of snow now, so that's all he's getting. I'm not giving him any more snow. Let's inflate again. One thing I did forget to mention at the start was you're going to need a 260Q to seal this with. You can use 260Q, or if you are experienced in balloons, you'll be able to use a 5-inch balloon as well and just use the neck of that. But if you are new to balloons, I would always recommend using a 260. I tend to cut mine in half, but as a newbie, if you are new to this, I would recommend using a full one just to give yourselves enough maneuverability with the balloon. So I'm going to reinflate. Now you can either reinflate now with your hand pump, or you can reinflate with your electric pump if you've got one. So I am going to use my electric pump and just really hope that my seal doesn't fail now, because I'm going to end up with snow everywhere. So let's inflate. Okay, you want to hold it quite tight now, and you want to pull your elf up. Now I'm just going to give him a little bit of a shake because he's got loads of snow all on him. There we go. I might go a little bit bigger actually on my balloon. So let's just pop that back on the end of there and just go a little bit more. There we go. That is perfect, I reckon. He's got his snow in the bottom. I'm going to pull his foot so it is touching the top of the balloon more or less. You can see literally sliding down as I let go. So I'm going to now need to seal that. So what I'm going to do first of all is twist this balloon, holding on to this. In fact, I'm going to wrap that around my fingers, and I'm just going to twist the neck of that balloon quite tightly. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, grab my 260 balloon. Now, as I say, I would normally cut mine in half, but you can use a full one. I think I am going to cut this in half just because I personally find it easier to use a half. I have been known to use a quarter as well, but that is just because I don't want to waste anything. So what you'll do, get your balloon and put it on the neck of that bobo, so that it looks like this. Then what you'll want to do, if you can, if you haven't got a big dog sat on your chair behind you, what you need to do next is just wrap that 260Q balloon around the neck of that bobo balloon. And I would do this personally, for me, 3 or 4 times. Now, as a new person working with balloons and sealing a balloon, I would recommend you go around 5 or 6 times. So I'm going to do that on this occasion. So that is round there, and that is what it should look like now. So you've got a big ridge of balloon. Now what you want to do, this is quite fiddly, so you want to tie off this 260. So pull it now as tightly as you can. I've got an air bubble in mine, which is a small issue. Let me just get rid of this air bubble. Hang on. I'm going to just cut the end off that just to make sure I don't get another air bubble in there. Just release that air out of that. Okay, I'm going to pull it as tight as I can, and I'm just tying a nice knot in that, like so. So that is what it's going to look like. Now I'm going to tie another couple of knots just to make sure that nothing is going to come undone. So that is what your finished seal is going to look like. Okay, so it's going to look like this with your wrapping around first, and then you've got your tied off piece of 260Q. So what you can do now is just snip off those. I wouldn't go too close to the end. I usually leave about 1 centimetre, 1/4 of an inch-ish on there, and that is how that is going to end up being your finished look on that. So now he is in that balloon and he's swaying around. He looks fab, doesn't he? I love this. Right, let's get on to the next piece, which is decorating this balloon and getting it all put together. The next thing to do now then is to get our balloon seated onto our hat box. So what we're going to do is grab our hat box, just going to take the lid off for now. We don't need that at this moment. So here's our hat box. What you'll want to do is locate the seam of your balloon, and you'll want the seam of your balloon to be in the centre of your hat box. So here is my seam, and I'm just going to put that there, and that is more or less where that is going to sit. Now this is the bit where you're going to find out whether your balloon is totally round, because if you think that your balloon isn't sat quite right, it might not be perfectly round, but it doesn't really matter too much, because you can give it a squeeze if you want to manipulate the shape of it. I'm leaving mine as it is. I'm quite happy with it. So I'm going to grab my thicker of my 2 ribbons, and I'm going to use this now to put across the top and around the bottom of my balloon. So I'm going to pull out quite a lot of this ribbon, and I am going to place it underneath my hat box. So I'm just going to gently lift that up, and I'm just putting that underneath there. And again, I want that to be in line with the seam of my balloon, and we are going to tape that down underneath afterwards. So let's pull our ribbon up to the top of here, and you can see now how that is holding that balloon there. We want to tie it quite tightly. So what I'm going to do first of all is just let that go, and I'm just going to cut off a big length of this ribbon, because what I'm going to do is tie this into a bow at the top. So I may need to just pull that through to equalise my length a little bit. Okay, I'm pulling that up, and I'm covering that seam on the side, and in turn I'm covering where we cut that balloon when we put the elf in there. I want to pull it quite tight. Now don't forget, obviously, because balloons are reactive to heat and temperature change and all sorts of different environmental factors can affect your balloon, this is really tight now holding on here, but tomorrow morning, if it's colder in my room, this balloon may have shrunk a little bit, so therefore this won't be as tight of a grip holding on to it. But it doesn't matter too much, because we are going to seal the bottom of this ribbon onto here, and it should hold it quite nicely. So what I'm going to do first of all is just pull my bow all the way up to the top and tie a knot. So we're just pulling really nice and tight again, and then what I'm going to do is just tie my ribbon around the neck of my balloon. I'll show you this in just a second. So I've literally tied that ribbon around the top there, so it's holding on to this part as well. Just gives it a really nice secure feeling, and as I said, this is really tightly pulled against the bottom of there, but it will still, you know, go loose. At this point I'm going to cut off the excess of this. I'm not going to take it all the way down to the bottom, I'm just going to snip it off. So there's probably maybe 1 inch of that neck there left. And all I'm going to do now is just get my ribbon so that it sits nicely to drape down the side. So I'm going to pass this one side underneath so that it's going to sit properly. And then this one is going to go down here. And I want them then to be equal length, so I'm going to trim that in a second. At this stage then, this is what your balloon should be looking like. So you've got your elf inside, you've got your balloon on top of your hat box, and then you've got your ribbon around the top. So as you can see, these are different lengths currently, so we need to sort that out. So let's just snip off the end, and I'm just going to do it at an angle that goes down that side, and then I'm going to do this one again, so it's roughly the same, be about there. I hope that's about the same. I can't really tell from this angle, but I think it will be roughly the same. Yeah, more or less. So he is, luckily for us, facing forwards at the moment, but if he were to twist around, you could just twist the top of this balloon and it will help you to get that back. So what we're going to do now then is just seal the bottom onto here. So all I am literally going to do is grab myself some tape, and I've got some super strong masking tape, and all I'm going to do is grab a piece of that. Let's just grab a tool to help me to get the bottom of this out. So I'm just going to use a piece of tape, just tear that off, and I am going to pop it over the bottom of that ribbon, and that is just going to hold that in place there. Then what you can do is pop your hat box lid back on, and that looks fantastic. Give him a little shake. Right, now what we want to do then is decorate the top of this balloon, because we don't want this all on show. So what we're going to do is grab ourselves another piece of ribbon. I'm going to make a bow just to go on the top. Now then, let's just grab another piece of our ribbon, and I'm thinking I will want about 60 or 70 centimetres. So I'm just going to measure that out on my cutting mat here. This is 70 centimetres of ribbon, and what you're going to want to do, just halve it, and then with about 20 centimetres at the end, just hold on to that with between your thumb and your forefinger, and just go round like so. And make your bow. There we go. So that is going to just now go on the top of our balloon. I am going to just snip that off again. There, let's cut that off at an angle, so they match nicely now again. And we're going to put this onto the top of our balloon. I know a lot of people that would just hot glue this bow onto here, but what I do, get my needle again and another piece of the monofilament line, fishing line, and I just thread this up. I get my bow and I pass my monofilament through the back of the bow on there, and I just want to pull through one side so it's like that. So now I have my bow attached to my mono line, as you can see there quite closely. And what I do now is just get my balloon and I will just tie this around the top of there. Very easy to do when you're trying to keep it on camera, but I hope you can see what I am doing here. Max is having a bit of a scratch, if you can hear him. That is what that is. And we just want to pull it nice and tight and then tie it off again in a double knot. Right, there we go, that is on there perfectly. Now what we're going to do is just tuck these pieces underneath our ribbon on the top as well. So we're just going to get our ribbon, just very, very carefully lift that up and tuck that piece of neck under there. We still need it to be there, but it's not required to be on view. And then the same with this piece of 260. I'm going to go under the other side with that, just tuck that under there out of the way. And then we have our piece of monoline again, which we just need to grab. I'm going to use my little scissors for this actually. I'm just going to cut that off there, and then I have another bit here that I think's sticking out. Let's just get rid of that there. Perfect. Now we're going to go over to Cricut Design Space and design our design for our disc that's going to go on with our message on it. Here we are then in Cricut Design Space, and this is the design that I've just made up to go on my little acrylic disc that's going to go on the bottom of my balloon. So I've made this one myself using curve, and I've sliced out the elf in the middle here out of this circle. This is going to be on my profile, so if you want to use this design, please feel free to do so. It will be saved, as I said, into my profile. If you don't know how to find somebody's profile in Cricut Design Space, I will link a short video above and down below for you now, so you'll be able to find out how to do that. But as I say, feel free to use this particular design. I've sized this one to be just under 10 centimetres. The one thing to bear in mind is that there is a hole in the acrylic disc round about here, which is probably going to be straight underneath this H, I would have thought. So I'm just going to have to be careful when I am applying my design. I may need to put my ribbon through and come in between this section here and this section here, but I'm going to cut this out now. I'm going to be using some white Oracle 651. I chose white purely because I think it's going to show up better against the red of the hat box, but it's entirely up to you what you use. I was going to try some nice red like holographic stuff that I've got, but I don't think it's going to show up that well, so I'm going to go with the white and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to cut this out now. If you're ready to cut yours out, go ahead and do that now, and then we will apply them onto our acrylic discs together. As I said then, I have sized my design to be 9.8 centimetres, and this is a 10 centimetre acrylic disc, as you can see, so it's going to come into just a little bit below there. I do think that this hole might be in the way a little bit, but there's nothing I can do about it, and I didn't want to space my design so that I had a big gap in the center, so that's what I've done so far. This has actually got a protective cover on it, which I'll take off in a minute when we come to popping our design on. So I've just got a small piece of Oracle 651 vinyl. This is my favorite vinyl to use, and I'm just going to grab my mat now, and let's just get rid of those little bits of gold cardstock that are still on there. I'm going to place that up in the top left corner on there. I'll grab my brayer, just give that a little bray down. Let's go back to Design Space. Here's the design then. Let's go through to make. As you can see, it's on the screen. It is all in one place, exactly how we want it to be, because I have used the attach function to make sure everything is correct. It will be see-through in this section here, so this is all going to go on as one piece. Let's go through to continue. And we're going to choose premium outdoor vinyl for this cut. This is what I always use for this particular Oracle 651 vinyl. If you don't have this vinyl up here, you can go on to browse all materials and you can choose from the drop down box and choose vinyl, and then it'll show you all of the different vinyls that you've got there. You can see here's my premium outdoor vinyl as a bookmark. I can click on it here as well and it will let me select that. It gives me that little green tick and I can click on done. Now I'm ready to go and to cut this out on my machine. Okie dokie, here is my design. It is cut okay. There was a couple of little bits just on the bottom here, and the little bow also hasn't really cut that well. I think it's just so small, but it's okay, so I'm not too worried. Right, the center of this design is actually underneath this H here, so that is where we are going to place our disc. So you'll be able to see it is roughly on top of that H just there. So we need to get rid of this cover that's on here, so I'm just going to use a weeding tool to very gently lift that because I don't want to scratch it. Okay, and then again on the other side the same again. You could leave it on, I suppose, the white, if you wanted to leave it on and have it white, because then you could use a red vinyl. Actually a pretty good idea now I come to think about it. So there we go, we've got rid of those. And what we're going to do now is grab ourselves some transfer tape. I'm using the clear low tack transfer tape today. If you've not seen this stuff before, I have got a video on it that I filmed not that long ago when I first received it. I wasn't a big fan of it for balloons, but it's good for things like this. I do think I still prefer my paper transfer tape for balloons, but it's good to try something new. But for glasses and things that are hard, these are better. This is better even. Okay, so we've got that on there now. Let's give it a good old burnish with a scraper. Just like that. And that is nicely applied. And then what we want to do, just turn it over and always do the back as well. We're going to peel that off. So let's lift up that corner. Just peel that back carefully. You want to make sure that nothing is stuck to your backing paper. Now what I am going to do is use my backing paper to help me to apply this. So I'm just going to put that just on the top there. I will bring back my disc, here it is, and I'm going to just pop that there, and I've got the line of my cutting mat going straight through the middle of that hole just there. And what I'm going to do, I'm hoping this is going to work, but I can't really see where it is, so I'm going to have to stand up. I'm going to do the best I can with this, getting it in the middle. Okay, and we've got about 2 millimeters around the outside. Thinking about it now, I probably wouldn't use a circle around the outside for a newbie, because they can stretch and it can be difficult to apply, but that's gone on all right actually. Let's peel that back. Looking good. We do have that H just sort of floating over that hole, but it's okay. Just peel it back nice and slow. There we go. That looks absolutely fantastic. Let's put that to one side. I can probably use that piece again. Let's get the balloon back and pop this on there now. So I've got my ribbon here, just a small length, it doesn't need to be very long at all, and I've got my disc. So all I'm going to do is just fold this in half, just to make sure we are using the right amount. And then I'm just going to put my scissors through there and hold this H out of the way like that. And then I'm going to go from the front and I'm going to put my loop through that hole. And what I can do is turn my ribbon so that it's totally flat and flush against there. And then my loop is on the other side. And all I'm going to do is get the ends of my ribbons here and just put them straight through that loop. Now I've got a really nice flat ribboned edge which isn't interfering with my vinyl, which is overlapping that hole. So that is brilliant. Right then, so not going to lie, have messed up here slightly because I've forgotten. I should have put this on before putting all the balloon together, because now I'm going to struggle to get this under there because I've pulled it so tight. But what I've done is just put a little bit of double-sided tape on there. It's quite strong stuff, and I've already peeled the backing off, and all I'm going to do is just lie my balloon down and carefully, very carefully, because I don't want to pop it, just lift up that there. So I'm just lifting that up. I've got my piece of double-sided tape, finding the centre as best I can, and I'm just going to push that down there out the way like that, and then just put that back on there. The last thing that we need to do now then is just attach the lid to the bottom of the hat box, and I'm just going to run some hot glue around that and then just pop it in there so that when the customer or a child picks it up, the lid isn't going to fall off the bottom and show them all of the mechanics of the design behind it. So let's do that next. Yeah. hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to subscribe. Drop me any questions or comments that you may have down below. As usual, everything I've used in this video will be listed for you. And I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon for another video. Bye!